Yes, how are we all? I hope all is well. My name is Sachin, and this is the Total Cricket Podcast, episode 10. So, just a quick heads up, I will not be talking about the Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe, and England, South Africa test matches. In this podcast, I will wait till those games are finished to review them. But on to the podcast now, and we have some big news that the West Indies could be back to full strength very soon. Yes, after years of problems between Cricket West Indies and the players, it appears like the end of the animosity potentially. Now, what has happened is that a resolution has been agreed to abandon Cricket West Indies' really strict policy regarding player availability for regional cricket. So, what has happened in the last few years is that to be eligible for West Indies selection, you had to play in the corresponding format in regional cricket. But now this appears to be being softened a bit, which is great. Obviously, they all play in the CPL, so that's why the West Indies still have a pretty strong team in the 2020s, but in ODIs and Test cricket, their team has been significantly weakened due to this. So it would be great. It allows those players the flexibility to be able to play in the domestic 2020 leagues around the world and still represent the West Indies. It is simply the climate of modern cricket. The West Indies Cricket Board cannot offer the money that these guys can get playing in these franchise tournaments around the world. You have to accept that these leagues are a big part of the cricketing landscape, and it seems like Cricket West Indies has finally done that. Let the players make their money, but also allow them to play for the West Indies. So the thing about this is that this means that look at the players that could now be back in contention. Marlon Samuels, Lendl Simmons, Darren Sammy, Andre Russell. Now, Andre Russell is only after his WADA ban is done, but I continue with Darren Bravo, Kieran Pollard, Sunil Narayan, Dwayne Bravo, and Chris Gale. That is basically a whole team's worth of players that have not been eligible to play Test and ODI cricket for the West Indies in the last few years. Now, this could be huge for the West Indies. I look at it and they really needed this. Their ODI team is very weak and their Test team is not much better. They're still pretty decent in 2020, but those two formats, they are really struggling. And it is particularly important with the fact that they are almost certain to play the qualifier for the 2019 World Cup. Now, with these players coming back into the mix, their chances of qualifying really go up quite significantly. Because honestly, with the current team that they have, I don't think they would have qualified. Zimbabwe are coming up now looking good. You've got Afghanistan, you've got Ireland, you've got the Netherlands, you've got Scotland. The West Indies have been terrible. They could have easily not qualified, but now if these players are available, you would feel they would be heavy favourites to qualify. And cricket needs the West Indies. It really does. The colour, the passion that they bring to the game is something that is irreplaceable. So I really hope that they do end up making the 2019 World Cup. It appears that Chris Gale playing in that 2020 may have been a precursor to this. I was wondering whether it would just be a one-off. Well, it looks like it was the precursor to this really, really good news for the West Indies. Now, the thing about this is that there's also been an amnesty which has been proposed and is very likely to be accepted in the next week that would allow these players to play for the West Indies before October, because this proposal to relax this selection policy would only be introduced in the new round of central contracts that would be being given out in October, and hence this amnesty will allow these players to play for the West Indies before October. So that is also good, and it means that we could see these players in the limited overs leg of the England tour, which is big because England at home in ODIs, in those conditions, being able to get 300s almost at will, the West Indies really need to beef their team up, particularly their batting is really bad at the moment. So bringing in these players is a huge, huge plus for the West Indies and actually gives them a chance. Interestingly, I think out of this, the biggest player I feel to be coming back is Darren Bravo. Now, I'm going to read the statement that he has made about basically an apology, and I quote, On the 11th of November 2016, after viewing statements made about me by Mr. David Cameron, president of Cricket West Indies, on a television sports program, I tweeted a response which referred to the president, which was in retrospect inappropriate. As I have always tried to uphold the best traditions of West Indies cricket and its players, I now therefore wish to withdraw the comment made on my Twitter account and apologise to the president of Cricket West Indies and to all Windies fans. So Darren Bravo will delete this tweet, which is what David Cameron wanted to do. David Cameron has also apologised for the misunderstanding as well, which is really, really nice, because otherwise, wow, there would be some big problems, I feel, for the West Indies without Darren Bravo. He's a pillar of their future. Here's David Cameron's statement. In early November 2016, I gave an interview to Sportsmax TV, during which I discussed player retainer contracts and the grades of contract that had been awarded to certain players. In the course of the interview, I stated that Darren Bravo had previously been on an A contract, which I have since been advised is not correct. I apologize for the misstatement and wish to assure Mr. Bravo that there was no insult or offence intended towards him. Darren is a senior cricketer who has been a valuable part of the West Indies setup for a long time, and I would hope to see his game continue to progress and mature at both regional and international level. So now it seems like both parties would be happy with these apologies. This is really, really good. Darren Bravo is the pillar of the West Indies batting in their test team at number 3. They had to resort to Shimron Hetmeyer, a guy who a year ago was playing in the under-19 team, won the under-19 World Cup, but he's clearly very raw, talented player, but he is really raw and looks out of his depth at the international level. Darren Bravo coming back into the test team would help so much. He's a very good batsman, Darren Bravo. He averages well over 40 in test match cricket. And what's interesting is he averages 50 away from home, which I think is incredible. He averages in the 30s at home. And this to me is the quality of the pitches in the West Indies. They are slow, low pitches that are difficult to bat on. They're difficult to score quickly on. And often they help the spinners quite a bit. They're almost subcontinental conditions. Darren Bravo playing on pitches that are harder and faster, easier to score if you bat well on, has done better on 50. An average of 50 away from home is world class. So him coming back into the team would be huge for their test team. Honestly, the others I don't see improving their test team that much. Kieran Pollard has never played a test match. Sunil Narayan did not look that effective as test level when he did play those few games. And also, since he's had to remodel his action, I feel like he's lost a bit of his potency. In the recent IPL, he just wasn't the same as he had been previously. So I don't think he would have had the big impact. I'm not sure he's an upgrade on Devendra Bishu, to be honest. Blaine Bravo hasn't played a test match since 2010. Chris Gale is 37. Who else? Marlon Samuels has been performing very poorly for many years now in the test team. Darren Sammy is a bits and pieces cricketer. He's not a test cricketer. Andre Russell has not played a first-class game for 3 years. Wendell Simmons performed poorly for the West Indies in the recent 2020s against Afghanistan. He was dropped for the series against Afghanistan, but he was very poor in that series against Pakistan. So basically, no one's adding anything. No one's adding anything except for Darren Bravo. When I honestly look at the West Indies test team, I think Craig Brathwaite, Leon Johnson, I don't see any openers. Is Chris Gale going to be able to play test cricket? Chris Gale, anyway, has been on the decline. He's been suffering a lot of injuries. Is he really going to be better? I mean, I guess it's Leon Johnson. So Leon Johnson or Kieran Powell, Kirk Edwards, all those characters they've tried. Kieran Powell he's okay, I guess, but again, I'm not sure Chris Gale is necessarily an upgrade on Kieran Powell or Leon Johnson, two openers that they've tried in the recent past. Shimron Hetmeyer, Darren Bravo is a big upgrade on him, yes. Vishal Singh has been dropped for the England tour, so they need to look at a replacement for him. But they've got Shea Hope, they've got Roston Chase, they've got Shane Dowrich, and maybe you could say that Marlon Samuels could come back in at number 4, I guess. The bowling, I'm not sure. I mean, there isn't really any fast bowlers anyway who are out of the West Indies anyway. So I think that all in all, at a push, definitely Darren Bravo, but at a push, Marlon Samuels, Chris Gale could help the Test team. But I think the one-day team, that is where they're going to get significant improvement in. Their one-day team is terrible. And I think all these players would come into the one-day team and help it significantly. Their one-day team would become a lot stronger and actually be competitive, which it hasn't been for a while now. So I do believe that the Test team has something about it with that bowling attack. The biggest thing for the Test team is produce good wickets, produce wickets where the fast bowlers have a chance. Fast bowling is the West Indies' strength. Play to your strength like every other Test nation does. Use that home advantage. So that is the biggest thing for the Test team. For the one-day team, this will help them tremendously and help them qualify for the 2019 World Cup, I believe, and be competitive at the event should they make it. The 2020 team will remain still very strong and able to compete with the best teams in the world. So this is overall positive. You can't say this is a bad thing. Will this revive West Indies cricket? The two World T20 wins, we thought, was that going to be a turning point? They weren't, in all honesty. It went back to same old after both of them. Is this going to be a turning point? No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, these players are not going to be there for much longer. A lot of them are in their 30s who would be coming back into their team. This is a bit of a short-term solution, although it's a great short-term solution. Where are the players coming through for the West Indies of the caliber of these players? That is the biggest question for West Indies cricket that they need to really sort out. Because at the moment, the talent doesn't look up to the mark. Their talent has slowly, seemingly been reducing in skill levels since the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now into this decade. It's slowly been reducing in skill level, it seems. So hopefully this at least puts a bit of respect back into West Indies cricket. At least they can be competitive and a team that we can go back to enjoy watching. But yes, that is that for the West Indies. And now onto the next item of discussion, and that is that the Chennai Super Kings and the Rajasthan Royals have been given their license back to play in the IPL. We will see them in IPL 2018. They are two big franchises. They both won the competition. Chennai, the biggest, arguably, with the biggest fan base and the most successful team. These two teams, they had that 2-year ban. They've served it. We've seen the new teams, Pune and Gujarat, come in. The question now is, do those teams get dissolved and just replaced by Chennai and Rajasthan, or do we now have 10 teams? And this also brings up the question of player retainment. You look at Chennai, the players that they previously had, the Dhonis, the Ashwins, the Jadejas, the Dwayne Bravos, Suresh Raina, Brendan McCullum. What happens to those players? Do they leave their current teams and go back to Chennai, or do Chennai have to start from scratch again? Those are questions that still have to be asked. We're yet to see confirmation on those matters, but that should be exciting for the IPL. I think these two franchises had a big brand, obviously, being teams that were there from the start, foundation franchises. I think it's good for the IPL to have these franchises back. I feel like Gujarat, I didn't feel they were very good this year. They were very poor, and it just felt like I wasn't excited watching them. And Pune, they were a good team, but I feel like there was something about that Chennai team with all the big Indian players, and there was something about it. It felt like MS Dhoni's team. Pune didn't feel like MS Dhoni's team. I feel like MS Dhoni is sort of the centerpiece of the IPL. I feel throughout its 10 years, who's been the biggest star throughout the whole IPL, MS Dhoni, and it's like Chennai was his team. So to see the biggest star back with the biggest team, I think it's only going to be positive for the IPL. The last news item for the day to talk about is a bit of a bizarre turn of events for the BCCI. They have done a U-turn on the Rahul Dravid and Zaheer Khan appointments. I talked about these in the last podcast about how Rahul Dravid had been made the batting consultant and Zaheer Khan being made the bowling consultant. Now apparently these were only recommendations. The committee administrators apparently had made just these recommendations, but these were not appointments, which is a bit bizarre. The BCCI have been very befuddled, it seems. There's just been mixed messages coming out ever since the Champions Trophy. After the final, we heard about these rumblings between Kumble and Kohli. Then the coaching thing. First, they were saying, we're going to announce the coach. Then they said, we need more time. I believe that I think it was June the 10th, was it? I think it was June the 10th that they said they need more time to announce the coach. Then the next day they turn around and say, hey, Ravi Shastri is the head coach. And they also make these consultant moves, but now less than a week later, these have been rescinded and they were just recommendations. So Ravi Shastri, it's up to him whether or not he wants them to be with him. It's all a bit bizarre from India. I feel like the off-field issues have been bigger throughout this whole West Indies tour and in the aftermath of the Champions Trophy, taking the focus off the on-field stuff and really taking it to the off-the-field stuff. It's all a bit confusing. It's very confusing. I'm looking at this and I'm not sure what to think about it. There's just so much going on. Committee after committee. I don't know what to think of this, in all honesty. The BCCI needs to get its act together a little bit more. There needs to be a more clear approach. It's all a bit confused. It seems like there's no clear direction at the moment. They need that clarity of thought, because otherwise this could affect the team soon. With their tour to Sri Lanka coming up, I think they need to get these distractions out of the way going into that tour. But that wraps up the news for today and the final part of the podcast. I'll be reviewing the last round of the ICC Women's World Cup 2017, and boy, did this one have drama. So we'll start with the first game, Australia versus South Africa. Australia winning by 59 runs. Wow, that was very interesting. I thought that after Australia were kept to 269, that South Africa could potentially chase that down, but in the end, nowhere near the Australian total. Australia started off really well in this one with Beth Mooney and Nicole Bolton getting a 100-run opening stand, both getting 50s. Elise Perry with yet another 50, her 5th in the tournament. She has been so consistent, unbelievable stuff. She has been reliable, great stuff from her. The innings sort of fell away a bit though, and South Africa managed to restrict them nicely at the end. Sune Loose, the leg spinner, picking up 5 wickets, albeit a bit expensively, and Dane van Niekerk extending her lead at the top of the wicket takers leaderboard with a couple of wickets as well. South Africa, in reply, Laura Wolfhard playing a nice hand of 71, but apart from that, little substance. South Africa's innings fell away very quickly in this one, and Australia killed them with their bowling here. Jess Johnson picked up a couple, Elise Perry picked up a couple, Kristen Beams and Ashley Gardner, the spinners, were miserly as they had been for the majority of the tournament, and the surprise package, Rachel Haynes rolling her arm over, quite interestingly, and she also got a couple of wickets. Interesting to see that Meg Lanning missed out in this one, obviously, just a precaution there through to the semis. That shoulder injury would be a concern, and Australia would not want to take any risks with her, very understandable. This all means that South Africa finished 4th and Australia finished 2nd in the group. Australia will play India in the semi-final and South Africa will play England. And that is really going to be huge. India trouncing New Zealand. Wow, this was really unexpected. The absolute demolition job. I did not expect that. I thought it would be quite close, to be honest. And I thought that maybe New Zealand would edge it. But India really coming of age as an international team and securing their place in a virtual knockout game to the semis. Great stuff from them. Mithali Raj leading from the front with 100. Great stuff from her. Harmanpreet Kaur getting a nice 60. What a great power hitter she is. The way she strikes the ball, unbelievable talent she is. Veda Krishnamurthy, who actually didn't play the first game, She didn't play the first game. She was left out. She's come back and she's chipped in recently nicely. Great knock by her, 70 off 45 to get India to 265 for 7. That was a nice score, but I thought New Zealand would still be able to get that, but they were shot out for 79. Can you believe it? 79. They were absolutely shot out. Rajasrawi Gayakwad getting the 5 for India, and wow, this was quite stunning. The demolition job that India did do in this one. They secured themselves in the semis. Very disappointing for New Zealand. They have missed out on the semis for this tournament. They are usually perennial semi-finalists, but this time they were unable to do it. At the end of the day, India, could they be potentially passing New Zealand on the ladder in women's cricket? That is certainly a question that needs to be asked, but congratulations to India. They are through to play Australia in the semi-final. England securing their place at the top of the leaderboard, coming first in the round robin on net run rate ahead of Australia. They beat the West Indies by 92 runs. They only got 220 in this one. Heather Knight getting 67, but then Laura Marsh getting some quick runs at the end to push them up to that tally. Afi Fletcher with her off spinners did quite nicely. She got 3 for 33. But the West Indies, as has been the story of their tournament, the batting just folded. Very disappointing. Once again, no 50s in this one for them. Wow, this was terrible from the West Indies. Very, very disappointing to see. And it brings to an end a tournament that promised so much, but has delivered very little. Definitely the biggest disappointment of the tournament, the West Indies. They simply have not been able to adapt to the conditions, batting the faster pitches than they're used to. And well, England dominating their home tournament, and they will face South Africa in the semi-final. The last game of the group stage, it was an absolute dead rubber, but very important game for both sides. The race for the wooden spoon, Sri Lanka versus Pakistan, and Sri Lanka won by 15 runs to save themselves of that ignominy. And this was a tight game, as I would have expected. Two pretty weak teams, short on firepower. Sri Lanka getting to 221. It was looking like they weren't even going to get close, but Dilani Manadora, she did really nicely. 84 runs for her. Good to see someone else in the Sri Lankan batting order chipping in. And I must say that Pakistan, they fought hard, but in the end, not enough. 206 all out. Naina Bidi got 57, and Asmavia Iqbal down the order 38 or 45 to make it close. Things were looking awful for Pakistan when they were reduced to 6 down for just 135 runs. But then Asmavia Iqbal, she rallied the tail to get them very close to the target. The run rate wasn't a problem for Pakistan. It was the wickets, and in the end she ran out of partners. Chandima Gunaratne for Sri Lanka with her left arm orthodox, getting 4 for 41. She was the man of the match in this one, and amazing stuff for Sri Lanka, getting the win. Very disappointing tournament still, but something to smile about at the end of it. As for Pakistan, winless in the tournament. Wow. I feel like Pakistan need to do some soul searching. This is a very, very disappointing tournament for them. They did a decent job at the World T20. Remember the World T20 last year? They beat India. But now they have absolutely slumped to bottom. And the biggest thing for these two teams is the lack of firepower in both departments. And I think you can improve that through better infrastructure, better training, better fitness, put more money into it to increase participation levels. These are very basic things that hopefully we'll see pick up in these countries in 5 to 10 years. And hopefully they can do what South Africa and India and the West Indies have done recently and bridge the gap to the traditional big three, which are Australia, England, and New Zealand. But that wraps up the group stage of the ICC Women's World Cup 2017. The two semi-finals will be, as I have said already, England versus South Africa and Australia versus India. I'll do a preview for those games in the next podcast. It should be very interesting. My picks are Australia and England, two big favourites. They just have more to their teams, but don't rule out either India or Pakistan. South Africa. They're certainly capable of making an upset both those teams. So certainly those are going to be intriguing games. That concludes the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can check the podcast out. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. The Twitter page has the links to all those platforms. The next few podcasts, I'll be talking about the Sri Lanka-Zimbabwe test and the South Africa-England tests. But until then, as always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.